Okay, so I've been meaning to do a video, or at least actually I meant to write an article on my thoughts about MGTOW and its downsides. And a friend of mine on Facebook messaged me and asked what my thoughts were. And he sent me a couple videos, one of which I had seen before. So I'm actually going to give my thoughts to not only him, but to the rest of you as to my thoughts about MGTOW. Now, MGTOW is an acronym, for those that don't know, that stands for Men Going Their Own Way. And there's a lot of positives in it, and there's a lot of negatives in it. And I started to make a video before, but I got so far off onto. Of course, y'all know me. I went off into a rant about, feminism and some of my thoughts about male behavior that I feel very passionately about and am very against. But that video ended up being like 20 something minutes. So I pretty much just yelled into a microphone for 20 minutes and didn't really address anything. So anyway, here we go. MGTOW. Here are my thoughts on MGTOW. MGTOW, there's a lot of good, but there's some bad, and the bad further perpetuates this gender war that seems to be going on in the background of politics and religion and racism, etc. And I can't ascribe to MGTOW. Now, if you look at my life and like some of the stuff that I say, you would swear John from the Gen XY, MGTOW is your movement. That is your thing. That is something that you would back from here and beyond. And no, I don't, because MGTOW is a lot of stuff, and that's another big problem in MGTOW. It's like if you look at like I listen to Sandman. Sandman's is like a rock star in the MGTOW movement. Stars like Stardust and Barbarossa, and Aaron Clary's kind of in it only because he called out a certain group of quote unquote MGTOW guys and calls them virgin towels, mainly teenagers who say they're going MGTOW because they had their heart broken once by their 8th grade crush. So now they're talking about going MGTOW. He calls them out, but I think that's just a side effect of the internet. People can think that they belong to groups that they don't belong to. But that aside, let me start by saying this. The good parts about MGTOW is MGTOW brings back what used to be just considered normal male behavior. And what I mean by that is this. MGTOW, it's in the name. Men going their own way. And it's men leading their lives how they see fit to provide themselves a situation of happiness that they can continually work in, and an environment that they are happy with and willing to work amongst, while providing for themselves, either financially or what have you. That's the good part about it, and it's aside of what women think and the criticism of women, because you're excommunicating women from the equation. Now, MGTOW is taking off because I don't want to sound like an advertisement for Sandman, but I started listening to Sandman. I discovered Sandman on when I went to the Pro Bowl back in the earlier this year in January, and he had 28,000 subscribers ish. By April, he had like 31,000. That was like 2,000 subscribers in just a couple months. And now I think he's up to like 38,000. He's gotten like 10,000 within a year, which is a lot if you really look at how YouTube has grown and now everyone has a voice. Numbers that used to be laughable, back in the day are like now significant, But anyway, and he's really become a voice in the MGTOW movement. But here's the downside about MGTOW. MGTOW not only excludes women from a man's decision making, but it also preaches out against biological imperative in nature. And what I mean by that is this. It says that don't even include women in your life to begin with. Now, that's not accounting for all the, level 1 MGTOW, level 2 MGTOW. All that to me is just completely stupid. But I'm sure there's some of those people who describe themselves as level 1 MGTOW, blue pill, purple pill, red pill, whatever. You're not going to not look at women, man. Just be real about that. You're not going to exclude women from the equation. You're not going to not look at them. You're not going to want to be with one. You're not going to shove them out of your life and ghost, as they say. Just completely avoid contact with women, because eventually you're going to get lonely. There's going to be that one woman who wears your favorite looking outfit that you didn't know was your favorite looking outfit until you saw her wear it. There's going to be that one woman who walks by wearing a perfume that makes you go, oh my goodness, and then you're going to be right back into your normal male behavior of, she looks good, I want to be with her. And MGTOW tries to have you go against that, and that's not something you should go against. Like, that's something that keeps the population up, regardless as to what people think about it. And to really think that you're just gonna, use your emotional dislike or hatred because of what some past woman's done to you to fight biological imperative in human nature is completely moronic. I mean, to think that, an ex-girlfriend from, whatever time is going to now prevent you from getting married, or your next wife is going to prevent you from remarried or dating or wanting to be in the company of women at some point is ridiculous. And it makes this false environment. And I'm going to do a video because as many followers as Sandman has, I have caught Sandman in a couple of little fairy tales. But anyway, in a couple of hypocritical situations. But you have to be a fan of Sandman to kind of know what I'm talking about, because if you listen to a lot of his videos and you hear him reference some of his past, you can kind of go like, well, now wait a minute, that was the time you were saying this, so you weren't doing that, you were actually doing, but, it is what it is. I mean, I'm sure if you follow anybody around long enough, you can find hypocrisy in them, but that's not the issue here. But, man, you're not going to ignore women. Like, you're just not going to. And just like feminism teaches women that they don't need men, and men are stupid, and men are this, men are that, and the other. At the end of the day, women still go to men. Women are still subservient to men on a general scale because, again, we're the ones who provide and maintain the physical infrastructure of life. When there's a mass shooter, they're the first ones running away saying, I'll protect the women and the children. And, they have no problem, again, to use my Titanic example, they have no problem getting the lifeboats when there's a tragedy involved. But they'll sit there all day long in the lifeboat talking about how they helped build the ship, but, whatever. Let's see, I wrote a couple of notes here. I just wanted this video to be short, and I don't want to ramble on too long. MGTOW is good. To kind of go back to some benefits of MGTOW is that, it teaches men in this gynocentric world to be men again to an extent. Because, men do need to decide, okay, where do I want my life to go, and then make that decision, work towards that decision, and then find a woman who's willing to acquiesce to the program that you got going on. Now, feminism has dramatically made it harder for good men to find good women, because, despite what feminism teaches, a good man will provide for his wife and his children and his family, or the woman who he cares about. And despite the hollering and screaming that she'll do and criticism that he'll encounter when trying to court a woman later on, or I don't say court a woman once he's getting a relationship with her, because, courting, both sides are faking how great they are as people. But he will know that she's like that. And because he'll talk to other men, and other men will be like, yes, women are going to fight you. They're going to holler and scream, and they're going to whine and complain. But at the end of the day, they will follow what you got going on, because once they're responsible for the actions, they're going to look at you and basically say, bail me out, which is what women do. I've worked. This is now my second job where I work a job where physical results are required to show worth. And I'm not gonna say where I work now, but again, I work in production, so we have to build sets and build, lights and staging and stuff like that. So women always talk about how, oh, they can do what women can do, they can do what men can do, they can do what men can do. But then when the actual, all right, let's start moving stuff around, let's start lifting heavy objects, let's start doing this, then quickly they find the easiest task to do, and then they go and do that, which that's female nature, and to deny that is that's like to deny the sun exists, and men need to know that. And that kind of goes back down to another bad side of MGTOW, is that MGTOW doesn't acknowledge that. It just says that, women are equal to men and they need to do what we can do, otherwise they're pointless. Men and women don't think alike, and that's what nobody wants to say. Is women have their role and men have their role, and that's just the end all be all. Now, with bad economic times right now, people are a little bit more willing to listen because, now people are getting married past 25. Now people are having children later. Now people are starting to kind of realize that this extended sophomoric behavior that our culture has adhered to doesn't work out in the long run. And, nature has a funny way of fixing itself. So, when we lived in this great economic prosperous time, also known as post-World War II in the 1940s and 50s, it was easy for women to talk about how they could do what men can do and blah, 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 especially from the baby boom generation that didn't fight in the war and didn't help and didn't know the conditions that war was really in. Yeah, they kind of grew up in the post-war era when everybody was euphoric and happy and men had their jobs again and women were still kind of in the workforce, but they were still back in the home. They had these stable foundations. It was very easy to talk young impressionable girls who don't remember post or pre-war conditions and war conditions to, everything's great and even and fair, and why can't a woman work? It's like, okay, whatever. But now that we're in bad times again, or going to be in bad times again like that, because remember, first wave feminism, the whole Susan B. Anthony era, they were very full of themselves after World War I, talking about what they can do and men, blah, 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 blah. And then magically when World War II rolled around, did that shut them up? And especially after once all the men went off to war and they had to go work jobs. But that's a video for another time. And my historically inclined friends probably know a whole lot about how that story went down. But anyway, let me just wrap this video up. MGTOW is just, I can't get along with it because it's just full of crybabies, And instead of crying about women and why do they do this and why do they do that, and like I said, they kind of that for those of you old enough to remember when you could play kickball and it wasn't some violent patriarchal blah 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 BS that they're saying now. Back when we could play kickball, y'all remember that kid who always used to whine and cry because he would kick the ball and it was always caught, or he would be tagged out before he even got to first base, and he'd always whine and cry and talk about how it always happens to him. So instead of him getting stronger, kicking the ball farther to where he would have more time to get to the base, or running faster and getting to the base so he doesn't get tagged out, he'd always just take his ball and go home. Okay, well, since I'm not good and things aren't working out for me, I'm going to take my ball and go home and ruin it for everybody. That's what MGTOW is like to me. Like, instead of just saying that, okay, women are going to acquiesce to what men got going on, talk about how great they are, instead of just knowing women's nature and saying, okay, look, this is what's going to happen, X, Y, and Z. Yes, women are going to holler. Yes, women are going to complain. Yes, women are going to call you names. But at the end of the day, they're not going to do anything. I mean, seriously, they're not. Like, look at all the stuff that they hold themselves up for, and name any of them who actually started it. That goes from everything from the first female airline pilot, or just pilot in general, or to the first female race car driver, to the first female submariner, the first female oil rig operator, the first female, name a dangerous job or a dangerous venture that we now use as recreation or take for granted. Men did it first, and then women came and did it, and that's always the way it's going to be. Men always have to go and kill themselves doing something at the time is viewed as stupid, and then once we work out all the kinks and find out how to safely do it, then women come along and talk about how they're killing in the game and they can do what men can do and blah 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 blah. That's always the way it has. That's always the way it goes down. So when I see all these MGTOW men crying and whining about women, like, she asked for my money, then she went and spent it, and then I asked to spend her money, and she said no. It's like, shut up. Women always do that. When women take the resources of men and then use it for whatever. That's their role. That's why when America was great, or when any society was great, men worked, women stayed and took care of the home, house, tent, hut, whatever, and raised the children from the resources that the men went and got. Like, men used to go out and hunt. They would bring the food back to the women. The women would take the food that the men got, fix the men and the children and themselves food. They took the skins and made clothes for the children themselves and the men, and they used the rest to make, a new teepee or whatever, depending on what culture, modify it for whatever culture and time you're talking about. But that's the way a society functions. Women are natural resource takers. That's their role, and men are resource providers, and that's what nobody wants to acknowledge. Everyone acts like that women can just be just as good as men when it comes to providing resources, and men can be just as good as allocating resources as women can. No, they can't. Can it be done? Yes. Is it more effective reversed? No, it's not. Chris Rock had the greatest example. Can you drive a car with your feet? Yes, you can. Is it the best way to do it? No, it isn't. Just because it can be done doesn't mean that it should be done that way. So, anyway, this video's gone long enough. My final thoughts is, men, do go your own way. Do something that makes you happy in life as far as a career, and find a woman who's going to acquiesce to it. And just know that she's going to take your money. She's going to want you to provide protection. She's going to scream and holler and talk about, how equal she is to you, blah, 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 blah. But again, let a burglar break in at night and tell her to get up with the baseball bat and go see what that noise was downstairs, and watch the look that she gives you. I don't care how feminist she is. She will look at you like, are you serious? And women always do that. So just know they're going to do that, and do what you got to do. And you may say, well, that's kind of bad boy behavior. Okay, let's go into bad boy behavior. How many of you have had women reject you for the bad boy? Now, again, they say they want all of these nice, soft men who will help them, brush their hair and put lotion on their back and they can go shopping with. But at the end of the day, they go and get the guy with a criminal record, tattoo, who rides a motorcycle and may or may not have knocked over a convenience store or two. Women are hypocritical, okay? Just know that. And it's okay if you just admit it and you can deal with it and step up and be a man. And no matter how many crocodile tears they cry, and for those who don't know, crocodiles are tears that children cry when they know they're in the wrong, but they feel as though crying will get them what they want, so they'll muster up the tears to do it. That's crocodile tears. Just know that they're going to do that, and step up and say, yeah, you know what? I know what you're doing. That's not going to work. Now, this is the program. Don't like it. Find another man. And then they'll bounce around other men. Because not every woman is good for every man. You got to find a woman who is willing to, is a woman who's willing to follow you in life. And that's just how it has to be. So I know I probably ticked off a lot of people by saying that, but hey, look at our divorce rate. Look at the reasons couples are breaking up. Look at children now who are coming up in these environments, and look how messed up they are, and look at what they have to deal with. So I think the proof is in the pudding. So that's what I think about MGTOW is men stop crying, step up, and act like men.